What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review a mixtape by Young Jeezy. Basically, this came out in the spring of 2008, late spring of 2008, and it's called The Prime Minister. Now, this was pretty much right before Jeezy dropped his late 2008 album, The Recession, which was a pretty excellent album, definitely a good piece of work there. But then I would have to say that this project I didn't know that much about, but I wanted to kind of get some more of this just because Jeezy kind of took a decent amount of time off after his Cold Summer project, and I looked to see if he had any mixtapes from 2007. It didn't look like he did, between Dat Piff kind of being down and like Wikipedia not knowing every last thing about Jeezy's mixtapes. I just would kind of have to say that this is one that I at least saw that he did, so I wanted to cover this just because I've never listened to it. So it's pretty interesting little project. It's pretty brief. It's not quite as packed like some of his like I Am the Street Dream and like Can't Ban the Snowman and Trap or Die are some of those type ones. It's a more compact one. Jeezy was getting ready to drop an album with that, but I kind of look after it just being able to say I kind of look after just being able to say it's just an interesting valve because it's not necessarily like the inspiration era Jeezy, but this stuff doesn't really feel like the recession either. It's interesting enough that Jeezy kind of held on like a particular kind of trap or die type vibe, is because these songs that are on here do not feel like the stuff that was on Recession. I mean, apart from Put On, which just kind of felt like a taste and a preview of what he was going to do, I feel like some of the new songs on here, there's 5 freestyles, and then there's like uh 5 songs, and then there's 2 songs that are on other albums which are Out Here Grinding and Put On, and then there's 5 songs that are new, and then 5 songs that are freestyle. So I just look after the 5 songs that are new on here just sound like basically mixtape era Jeezy. It's just interesting that we didn't get a taste of the recession on this project, just because I look at songs like Translator, that feels like vintage late 2005 2006 Jeezy, and then Legal and Prime Minister kind of feel like Cold Summer and Inspiration era Jeezy cuts as far as that's kind of concerned. So it's just interesting kind of get that, and then really I'm Here kind of sounds like something off of his Trap or Die, just a soulful type record that would have been produced by like Don Cannon or something like that. It's just interesting kind of get that. But I just would have to say, yeah, the interesting thing about it is just the fact that Jeezy had an extra vestige and kind of extra valve about himself as far as being able to say that these are not quite recession songs, but they're also not really like inspiration songs either. They're just kind of standard mixtape era Jeezy that kind of brings back that sort of vibe from Trap or Die, Can't Ban the Snowman, and I Am the Street Dream if you want more of that. So it's basically also a little bit of Thug Motivation 101. It's just interesting that Jeezy had some extra cuts kind of within that area as far as being able to do it. Now, this mixtape doesn't have a single, so I'm just going to go ahead and recommend like the 6 songs out of 12 I recommend, and the 2 almost songs. So those 6 songs would be the CTE freestyle, Job 4, Legal, Lollipop freestyle, Prime Minister, the title track, and then Translator. So those are the 6 songs I recommend. And then the 2 almost songs would be Out Here Grindin', and then Put On, which is on the recession. So the reason why the 2 almost songs are almost songs is because Put On is on the recession. You might as well just get that project. It's the same type stuff, just with all the DJ stuff on there. And then Out Here Grindin' is kind of interesting, but it's still kind of an almost song for me. I probably would have given this as like the 7th song that I enjoyed if I liked Out Here Grinding's beat and Akon's hook a little bit better. Like I said on the DJ Khaled review that I posted a few days ago, I like Out Here Grinding. It's kind of like a nice summer hustle kind of song, but the beat is just relatively mellow. It's a decent little hustle bop, but Akon's hook is just not top shelf as to what I think about it. And I just kind of feel like it's a pretty standard and straightforward kind of hustle song that just doesn't have the bite. But on the single version, there were 3 different versions of this song, Out Here Grinding, which I didn't know about. There's the one that was on the We Global album. There was the single version, which had Jeezy on there. And there was like an original version that had Lil Wayne and Jeezy on there. So there's just the Lil Wayne version I haven't heard, but the Jeezy version, it contributes towards it, but not enough to convince me to wholesomely like the song. I still kind of feel like it's in almost territory. I mean, I can listen to it, but it's just not a successful, full blown hit, just like I feel in that context. But it is a decent vibe to have Jeezy on there and have him be a part of that kind of hustle mentality. Just because Jeezy's a pretty good motivator, with this thug motivation type stuff. So yeah, a couple freestyles that are pretty good would be the Lollipop freestyle, which is good to kind of get Jeezy doing a pretty good hit out of 2008. It's just too bad that most of these other freestyles are pretty bunk. I just would have to say, apart from like the CTE freestyle, I just feel like some of these, like Black Dreams, is just kind of more operatic than I would have wanted. That one was just like a really kind of dark opera type song that just didn't fit that well. And then Serious and Entertained, both Serious and Entertained just kind of have weak beats. I don't know where these songs came from. I don't know the freestyles that these songs originated from, but I just kind of wonder. They just were kind of like, I feel like Serious just reminded me of Jeezy's national anthem beat from The Inspiration. That was kind of a bonus track, but this was a worse version of that. And Entertained was just kind of like a sloppy kind of trying to be nightclub song, but just didn't pull it off as well as like Legal did and Prime Minister did. It was kind of had like, there's a lot of brassy kind of productions on here. Some of them work, some of them don't, but Entertain was one that didn't. And then CTE, CTE was kind of an abstract song for Jeezy. Definitely like this one. This kind of reminded me of a song that you would get ready to step out for the night. This definitely one that should give you some chills and energy and just kind of jolts as far as wanting to step out and have a good time. Maybe you're getting ready to buy beer within the next 45 minutes, something like that. Get some swishers, get ready to see some women tonight, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. Just an overall hype one. And I feel like another hype one that kind of does that is Job 4, which really sounds like a kind of darker version, considering that The Dark Knight was getting ready to come out around this time in 2008. It was just a lot of Batman hype. It's interesting that Jeezy says on this song, this looks like a job for the snowman and that type of stuff. So it's just interesting kind of getting that kind of creeping and just overall flittering kind of beat that just really feels like a more supersized and on steroids version of CTE. Job 4 can also be a pretty nice cruising around kind of song, just getting ready to get some stuff done. This really feels like a more enthralled version. Like I said, CTE on steroids, just getting ready to step out, have a good night. And this is definitely one where if CTE was kind of more at like 5:36 p.m., this one's more of like 8:39, where you're really going to have a good night, something like that. It's kind of like the concept. And then Legal and Prime Minister are both two nightclub beats. Like I feel like Legal is kind of more of like a vanilla nightclub beat. This is kind of a brassy, just kind of regular type night. This kind of feels like something like one of those standard cuts off of Jeezy's Cold Summer, that type of stuff. This has similarities to some of those type beats on there. It's not like as sprawling as like White Girl is, or even Thug, or like Corporate Thuggin' or some of those, but it's kind of, I want to say it might be similar to Corporate Thuggin', but it's just more similar to like some of like the album cuts from that album. There just were a lot of kind of like, there's a lot of kind of vanilla nightclub beats on Cold Summer that it sounds pretty similar to. I just can't remember them offhand, but Prime Minister, I definitely like the beat on here. Yeah, Prime Minister just had a real kind of haunting and sinister kind of beat. It was just an overall creeping kind of one, like Jeezy's Trap or Die Days or Thug Motivation 101. I mean, it's kind of halfway creeping, but it's also kind of halfway brassy in that sort of sense. It's kind of an amalgamation where I just see this as like a factory-made kind of stock vanilla nightclub, or not vanilla nightclub, but vanilla strip club song. This one's just such a lazy song. It just feels like a regular night at a strip club, something like that. Just kind of has that kind of lambent and just relaxed, regular kind of energy about it. It's just a good night out, and this is definitely one in like the pitch of the night, but just the energy is just so regular. It just doesn't have like the sheer ferocious, energy of Job 4, or really much of anything on this project. I mean, Job 4 is probably the most litty and fast-paced song on here. There's just, Jeezy is actually pretty relaxed on this project. There's just not an overabundance of like real kinetic and frenetic type energy. There's no carnivorous type song like White Girl, or like I Love It, or Go Get It, or some of those type ones from his Thug Motivation days and that type stuff, just from like a year and a half prior to that. But I just kind of look after it. I do like the concept of some of these club songs, but they're just kind of in a different pitch. These are just abstract and kind of off the wall songs by Jeezy. I feel like the thing about this mixtape is the fact that it tries some new tricks in terms of like the stepping out and kind of weekend moments, where songs like CTE Freestyle, Job 4, Legal, and Prime Minister just have like a different pitch compared to the songs of like Go Getta and White Girl and 3 a.m. and like Trap or Die and some of those type moments, where I feel like they are kind of in some cases similar to like the vanilla kind of sense of the strip club songs that were found on Cold Summer. I just feel like they just are kind of in a different pitch that just kind of has a different context as far as that kind of goes. It's very much mixtape Jeezy, but it's just not oriented towards the album type stuff of like the sheer bolsterous kind of highlights, where these are just kind of off to the side and just kind of like extra and bonus kind of strip club and nightclub songs that just kind of have like an extra spice to that compared to the stuff like there's just no immediate highlight in terms of like the songs on here like there was for like even Put On, which was on the Recession, even though that's on here, Go Get a White Girl, 3 a.m., just some of those immediate highlights that just were club songs on Jeezy's albums. There's not really one of those on this project. It's not to say that this mixtape is bad, but this is kind of the concept. Maybe it could have used one, but I do like the kind of new and interesting kind of spice that this project has, because I just haven't heard a song like Job 4 from Jeezy before. CTE Freestyle is a pretty good CTE was a pretty good enthralling song, and then Prime Minister was just like an overall good vanilla strip club kind of song. So there's just some good ones, and Legal is a good vanilla nightclub. So it's just interesting to kind of get that. But because this mixtape is so compact and there's some songs that are on other albums and that type of stuff on here, it really adds to the factorment that you just don't get an overabundance to really see this style of Jeezy, because it's interesting. Just because Jeezy was kind of in a quiet spell between May of 2007's Cold Summer and September 2008's Recession. So there just wasn't a lot of pitch as far as what happened around that time. It was just kind of interesting to get that style just to see what he was up to in that about 16 or so months that he had off in his off time. So he just didn't do a lot. He wasn't dropping guest features like that in late 2007 or early 2008, minus the song he did with Usher, which was like Love in This Club. So apart from that, it was just a pretty quiet time from Jeezy. So it's interesting to kind of get that. And I just feel I would definitely have to say that there's some good ones. But another song that's really good is Translator. This takes it back to like the Go Crazy and kind of trap star vibes of Thug Motivation 101. This one just definitely has like a more mixtape type feel towards it. This really feels like something that Don Cannon would produce, or someone like that, something affiliated with Don Cannon, DJ Drama, or Just Blaze, one of those type cats. This really has that kind of feel towards it. And I would have to say, yeah, that about takes care of it in terms of the concept of this project, just being able to say that. So really, mine is just like a couple cruddy freestyles, and then like the only other song I didn't like apart from the freestyles that were just not that good was just I'm Here, which is just basically like a lengthy verse from Jeezy that's just kind of more on his mixtape type stuff in terms of like a more soulful kind of vibe. Lil Wayne has done this type of stuff with Dedication. I want to say that Jeezy did this a couple of times on Trap or Die or Can't Ban the Snowman or something like that, but it just didn't quite work as well this time. It was just an extenuated verse. I think it's a storytelling song just talking about his old days, his street days of the past, but it's a storytelling song that's kind of talking about Jeezy's drug dealing days of the past, but it just didn't quite connect as well for me, because I was kind of looking for like the pitch of what Jeezy was up to. Is just kind of getting some of these soulful kind of moments that are just more thought-provoking. It was just not kind of the vibe that I was looking for in such a short and compact project. I think it was just kind of the differential pitch. I mean, it does have something for kind of more food for thought type altitude, but I think it should have been in like a song format or something like that. But I don't know. It's pretty much the only real song that I didn't connect with in terms of the new Jeezy. I really feel like this vibe and this spark of getting Jeezy on his new pitch, seeing what he was up to in this window where he kind of had like some vacation time, some vacay time, just as far as that kind of went between his two projects, and just seeing that kind of pitch, but only getting 5 songs or 6 songs about that is just kind of really light. And I just would have liked to have seen more of these, just because these outgoing songs were pretty excellent. It was definitely a new kind of pitch that was just pretty damn interesting to seeing Jeezy in that kind of vibe. But it's just more just kind of the fact that this project is just so brief. That's the complaint, compared to more so the concept of the cruddy songs. I mean, the freestyles were not chosen real well. I feel like Lollipop was a good one, but I would have thought that there would have been more songs out of 2008 that Jeezy could have done. I just felt like it was kind of aiming for like a mixtape feel, but it just didn't turn out that well, just because there weren't a ton of like real on the grind kind of mixtape type hustles in 2008 as much. Most of the folks that were doing that back in 2005, 2004, 2006 were putting out albums by that point. So it just wasn't quite as interesting, the songs that kind of had that freestyle kind of vibe. But apart from that, this mixtape's pretty excellent. I just would have to say me liking at least 6 songs out of 12 6 songs out of 12 plus 2 almost songs. I would go ahead and give this project like a 7.25 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty damn good to be able to talk about it. I think that that's enough, but it's just the fact that the freestyle choices for the beats were just kind of cruddy, and I just look after that. The one song I'm Here I just didn't connect with as much, but it's really just 4 songs out of 12 that I didn't enjoy in some fashion. But I just look after just being able to say that 7.25 is pretty good. In terms of the future or the social score, I would go ahead and give like a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give the social score a 7 because there is some good stuff on here for some stepping out kind of moments, but I just kind of look after it just being able to say there are some good social moments in terms of stepping out on here, but it's just kind of brief. I just wonder why this was such a compact and just really kind of brief relative project, because this is, I mean, it definitely shouldn't have been. I think it should have been about the size of Can't Ban the Snowman, or at least I Am the Street Dream or something like that, just to be able to see some more of these songs, because these are definitely gems. I mean, if you get what I'm trying to tell you here, is that these new songs by Jeezy that are not freestyles but are just what he was up to late 2007, early 2008 are pretty interesting. Definite, like Prime Minister was great, Legal was great, Job 4 was great, and it's just the fact that we just don't really get to see. It's kind of a mysterious time in that sort of concept. So it's just like, damn, we could have used more from that, just because I don't think that there was much out of Jeezy in late 2007 or so. So it's just kind of the thing. But yeah, 7 social. So in terms of the future, like Jeezy has been dropping projects. He dropped mixtape with DJ Drama back in late 2022 called like Snowfall. So he has done some stuff and he's probably working on more, but we'll see what's up with it. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this project. Has a small handful of gems on here. It's not a bad mixtape. It's just a short project. So that's why it's just, you kind of get some stuff, but it's just kind of real compact.